So this is the Reed and Christine Halladay Executive Lecture Series. Professor Macdonald is the professor over this class. I've worked with him for about 2 years now. He's a really great professor. You guys are really lucky to have him. He puts in a lot of effort over the summer, getting lots of really good speakers to come. So yeah, he cares a lot about this class. But anyways, Tom has over 25 years of experience in senior management, including international CEO and board positions. He was first elected to the Orem City Council for the 2014-2018 term and was re-elected for the 2018-2022 term. He received the 2007 Businessman of the Year Award from the Provo Orem Chamber of Commerce. He is a former president of Canyon Park, a real estate holding company consisting of the former WP Novell Orem campus. He is the former president and CEO of Clear Inc. in American Fork. He is currently an assistant dean in the Woodbury School of Business here at UVU. He served as mission president of the Oregon Eugene mission in 2008 to 2011, and he is married to the former Kaye Mangum of Orem and enjoys spending time with his family. So here's Tom.
Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. Well, the nice thing is, no matter how good or bad this lecture is, the rest are better. Everyone after this is a better one. So we're starting at a low point. So hey, how are you doing? Good to see you. I know a couple of you, forgive me, in a class of 200 and change that I probably won't remember all your names, but I'm thrilled to be with you today. I'm really excited about this class and what we're going to learn together. I've now had the opportunity to do this for many years, and I don't come, as you could hear from the intro, I don't come from an academic background, but it's really exciting for me to bring business leaders that many of them I know personally into this classroom, and then friends of friends of friends, as we'll talk about how to get through, how you make your business contacts work. So all the lectures will be fairly much like this, a brief introduction, we'll have a speaker. In fact, how many of you have read the syllabus? You won't be graded by this, but there's a lot of secrets in the syllabus, including all the speakers we have coming. And if you'd like, Haley will also be, this is a little handout we have for all the speakers, and public are invited to this too. So we're going to go through that, but you can pick up one of these on your way out too if you'd like. So I've been in Utah now for about 14 hours. I arrived from Lisbon, Portugal last night, and Haley's really glad I came because had I not been here, she might have been presenting today. So I was grateful the flights were on time. Had a chance to tour Lisbon and Porto. And so, have any of you been in Portugal? Thank you. What brought you to Portugal?
Well, my best friend lived there. I was there like months ago.
I've been to about 50 different countries. I'd never been in Portugal before, and it was great. And travel's a wonderful way to get you to know a little bit more about the world. So this is a Reed and Christine Halladay Executive Lecture Series. Mr. and Mrs. Halladay have been very generous with the university in form of donations and sponsoring some of the great speakers we have. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about this class and hopefully a little bit about leadership as we go. And we'll reserve some time for Q&A at the end as well. Although if you have a burning question, just raise your hand and we'll go through that. We're going to talk about the different ways you can get credit in this class and what you hope to accomplish. First, everything is available on Canvas. This should not be a surprise to any of you. If you have a question as you go, just stop me. It's available on Canvas. Our mission is to better understand the paths that other business leaders took to where they're at. How many of you hope to become a business leader at some point? So I hope this isn't too lofty. But I believe, I'm a first college educated person in my family, and I believe that by getting an education and some business life, I changed my life, and thereby I could change an organization or different organizations. And if you do that successfully, you can change the world. If not the wider world, the world of your own, your family, and those you have an influence of. So if I don't think that's too lofty of a goal of what we ought to aspire to in this class and in education as a total. You want to change lives, you want to change organizations, and you want to change the world. I believe you can do that. So we'll listen to leaders. This course will help you understand how they chartered their career, and it's going to be varied, and we're going to talk about how varied that is. And we're going to learn throughout your life, you've been surrounded by leaders. How many of you can think of a leader you had? What's the leader you can remember at the youngest age? Who was the first leader you knew about? So this is a little clue. When I ask a question and I quit talking, it's kind of time for you to answer. Can we try that again? What's the first leader you can remember at a young age? Thank you. But younger than that, you probably had parents, right? Almost all of you. I think that's a requirement to be a UVU student. You had to have parents. So you've all passed that test. But you're going to have leaders throughout life, and you're going to be a leader. So you mentioned two kind of in one here on the front row. You mentioned parents and teachers. What other kind of leaders have we had? Coaches? Let's see if that's my next one. Oh, I went to the, and to be politically correct, I went to the Girl Scouts. And I think they're just Scouts now. But anyway, we had Scouts. Say it again?
They're still Girl Scouts.
They are still Girl Scouts, but the other ones are just Scouts, aren't they? Okay, so we have Girl Scouts and Scouts. Then we have coaches, as you talked about. Did you learn, tell me some of the things you learned from coaches about leadership that you admired and maybe some things you didn't admire. It's going to be a tough semester, guys. Please.
I had a swim coach, and he would do the practices with us once a week.
He'd do practices with you once a week. What did you learn from a coach who actually got in the pool instead of just told you from the sideline what to do?
It was kind of like the first experience that I had with that, and it really showed us like he cared about like our technique and like how we were going to succeed because he was like going to be right there.
Who did you swim for? Which school?
I went to American Leadership Academy.
Okay, so by the way, I'm glad I didn't set this up, but my granddaughter was on Talking Sports, not Sunday, a Sunday before, of her swim team. Her 11 and 12-year team had shattered the state record in Melody. Melody? We need to do a different one. One does, what's it called? Medley. Yeah, I couldn't get that word. I'm sorry. Sleep deprivation. I'm sorry. So glad you picked swimming where they actually got in with you. And coaches can be such a great person for you. So whether it was baseball or softball or swimming or whatever. You can also have, oh, that's another coach. How many of you had a part-time job where you had a leader? And you learned maybe good skills and maybe not so good skills. Did any of you have a kind of a rougher boss who was kind of demanding and felt like maybe they needed to be with a younger group? Yep. We won't mention him or her by name, okay? And then somebody had good bosses who really wanted you to succeed in life. Haley mentioned I served as an LDS mission president, and although this is not a religious course, there's a type of leadership in there too that you're teaching young people about life. And many of you learned something about leadership in those experiences. Then we have the leadership that a couple share, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, as they develop a relationship between one of them. And sometimes one person's a leader and sometimes the other person's a leader. And then, of course, we have political leaders who vary pretty dramatically, not just between parties, but between leadership styles are very different. So today, I just want to talk to you about various types of leaders and some of the leaders we're going to have into our class that we can learn from. So, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing it that far. Whatever you do, make a difference and look back and say, I did that. I did that. Sometimes we've had very successful people up here who are part of generations of leadership. Perhaps a second or third generation of a successful family. And I remember someone was sitting right over here last semester and asked a very successful, prominent Utah family, hey, I'm not coming from that Utah family. How can I have that kind of experience? What do you think the proper response to that question would have been? See, this is another clue. I asked a question and I went quiet. There could have been a lot of right ones, so I'm not looking for guess what's in my head. What might have been a good answer? Yeah, that should start with you. And frankly, you can foul up a good family relationship. It could start or fail with you. And that's exactly what this prominent person said. This now needs to start with you. And that's part of changing a life, changing an organization, changing the world. And I hope you'll feel empowered throughout this class to do that very thing. So we're going to talk about, I'm the instructor. I think Haley's done that fairly well. You get 1 credit hour for coming here. I think you all know that, right? I think it should be one of your best classes, but it's also an easy class, because right now what you should be doing, if you haven't read the syllabus, is writing a brief review of what you learned from the class. So the way you get points here, and we'll go through this in detail, you attend class and you write up something about the lecture. Okay? It should be fairly easy. By the time you leave here, you should have your whole work done for the week done, because you should have written up something about the lecture. And we're right here every week, with the exception of one, and I'll tell you that. We're combining one of our speakers with the presidential lecture series, and we'll be in the grand ballroom. You'll be joined by another 800 of your closest friends and community leaders who will be there with us. Okay? So far you should have read some of this on the syllabus. If you missed that, you should be able to gather that from the syllabus. It's in the syllabus. If you have a question, it's in the syllabus. And then if you have a question beyond that, Haley will be great at replying to your questions, okay? Haley said, again, by the time the semester starts, my work for this semester is over, and I'm starting to work on next semester speakers. So I pray every Thursday morning more fervently than I do any other day that the speaker will show up and that he or she will be well prepared and they won't have a big glitch in their PowerPoint or something. But each week we'll have an excellent speaker, and we're going to talk about who they are. So you've met Haley. If you need anything, ask her. She's been now TA this is her 5th semester, so she's got this drilled down and does a great job. So she'll sign you up for lunches. How many of you know about lunches? Have you read about that in the syllabus? Have any of you signed up for future lunches? You can sign up now for lunches in the future, and we'll talk about that for speakers that you might want to hear. Did you get a new picture for this one, Haley? You did. Yeah, updated it. Yeah, I thought your junior high one was a little bit past. So what you should pay attention to this class. I don't even care if you get the credit. You do, because you needed to graduate. But what you learn in this should just be phenomenal. And I say that not because I'm any good, but because I've had enough experiences with these people who come and speak to us and share their life's goal. So the first one, they'll describe their jobs that they're in, and if you do sign up for the lunches, you'll have some one-on-one time with these speakers. And that's when you have a group of about 10 or 12 students with the speaker. So if there's someone speaking that you want to have some interest in that line of work, you ought to sign up to meet with him or her. You can evaluate your career aspirations. You can discuss ideas of mutual interest with the business leaders who come in. So let's just talk about when sorry, I thought I was on a different slide. I apologize. When you have a lunch with the speakers, we ask you not to wear shorts or ball caps. If you're being one-on-one, how you come to class here should be indicative of other classes that you attend. But if you go to one of the lectures with our visiting people, please dress in decent clothes. That doesn't mean suit and tie, but similar to this, okay? You can wear Dockers and an open shirt. Women can wear pants or a dress, just not holey jeans, okay? So, because we want to represent UVU well. So, we ask you to, if your cell phone's on, have it on silent so we don't hear the ring. I think you have a pretty hard time getting cell service in this room anyway, so the gods have smiled on us favorably or unfavorably. You cannot make calls very easy or get much in the way of text. Wi-Fi work okay in here? Are you getting internet okay? Okay, so you should be able to get Wi-Fi, but again, you shouldn't even care. That was a test to see if you're checking Wi-Fi. You should just be taking notes on this class, nothing else. You're not allowed to bring food in here. This is a performing theater, so you can bring a cup of water, but you can't have lunch here during the class. So you can bring babies, though. We love them. Thank you. Hi. You don't do homework for other class, but please do the homework for this class, because as you take notes, you're done. I hate these do's and don'ts. Ask questions. Be thinking of a couple questions. So if a speaker comes and pauses, I hope you'll be very quick with a question. And we're going to tell you a little bit about these people. You can find out more about them online. And if there's someone you're interested in, you ought to be prepared to ask him or her a question. Okay? How many of you have taken this class before? I know at least one or two of you have. I think you're allowed to take it twice for credit. So it's an R at the end. And some of you, how many of you have taken the Entrepreneur Lecture Series, which is similar? You can take that one twice too, and this one twice. So I'm glad you're back. Thank you. Do work on your speakers' reviews. And by the way we know whether or not we should bring a certain speaker back is your reviews. If you say he or she was wonderful, please bring them back. Or if you say this person didn't really do what I wanted to learn, what I wanted to learn, we may not bring them back. Although with every speaker you can learn good things and not so good things about him or her. And you'll pattern your life. We had one speaker who talked about travel, 300 days out of the year. He never saw his family, and he was extolling himself as quite a popular, successful business person, and he was. But almost everyone wrote, I don't want to do anything like that. Well, that's not a bad thing to learn from a speaker, that you don't want to do exactly what he or she did, right? So be prepared to share your views, and Haley will gather those, and we share some of your comments with our speakers. So to pass this class, you get 100 points. And you can check your grades like within a day or so after you attend class. So we'll go through how you get your points, okay? But 100 points, you pass. That means really by about class 8 or 9 or 10, you could be done. We hope you'll keep coming. We have 14 lectures. We hope you'll keep coming. So, first one, you get 6 points for being here on time. I think we're being a little lenient today. You get 4 points if you're late. Why do you think we would dock you for being late? Yeah. Yeah, some of these people are extremely successful, extremely busy people, and we don't want you walking in late. So we do put we give a bonus for being here on time. Okay? And also we don't want you leaving early. So the same thing, if you leave early, you get docked. In life, you should not take classes, you should take professors. And we're going to provide you 14 different professors during this class that we hope will change your lives. You know the rest of this now. Change an organization and change the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of these speakers. And again, some of them I've known for a long time. And some of them, a friend or a friend of a friend knew him or her. Is that unlike the way you connect on LinkedIn or something else? Isn't that the way you get the next connection? So we're going to talk about that. Next week, we have Mr. Rick Woodbury coming. How many of you are in the Woodbury School of Business? Bingo. Who do you think Mr. Woodbury works for? The Woodbury organization. The Woodbury organization, I'll tell you a little bit about Rick. I've known him for several years. This is he's the third generation. There's now the next generation, fourth generation of Woodburys and family members who are running this organization, which is 100 years old this year. Rick has been one of the early significant contributors to UVU's School of Business and has a wealth of knowledge in real estate development. So if you have interest in real estate development, maybe Rick Woodbury is one you'd want to meet with afterwards. The next speaker is Hiram Smith, who founded Franklin Covey. How many of you know of Hiram Smith? He spoke last semester and was one of our more popular speakers, and we invited him back. Be prepared to memorize with Hiram Smith. I've known Hiram for a number of years. He's living in St. George now, a very successful person. Some of you may have read some of his books. He's a writer. Hiram will be, I think, a delight for you to listen to. He's your favorite, isn't he, Haley? Okay. Then we have a founder of Blip, who was also a founder of Jibes, a young man by the name of Brent Thompson. Frankly, I don't know him, but a friend of a friend did. And normally when we bring a younger person in, he relates more to you. Here's a guy who's had a couple of successful startups and is now running a new group at Blip, which I know very little about. Can anyone help me with Blip? Anyone know about that? Good. What do they do?
It's a company that does advertisements, but they
rotate them really quickly, and so it's like a new form of roadside advertising.
Okay, they do roadside advertising for those of you who might not have heard or those who are watching this on video later. He also was one of the founders of Jive, who sold a year or so ago and did fairly well on that group. So great group. Then we have Laura Butler, who's a Senior VP of People and Culture at Workfront. How many of you know of Workfront? Maybe any of you work there by chance? So again, she's a friend of a friend that I connected with who's going to be speaking to us. Then we have Ryan. How many of you know Ryan or New Skin? You know of New Skin. Any of you know this gentleman? One of my real excitements of getting Ryan to speak is a UVU alumni. So 20 years ago, he was sitting in this class, and now he's the president of New Skin, a New York Stock Exchange listed company. Excited to have Ryan come back to the fold and talk to you about his experiences. How many of you know John Curtis? Representative Curtis was the Provo mayor. John and I have known each other for a number of years. I was in DC with some students in May and visited his office and cornered him into coming and speaking to us. So excited to have him. Again, we don't expect you to agree with these people politically or any other decisions they might make. We expect you to learn from their leadership experience. Last time when I was doing this, we had a fire drill, so I'm hoping that isn't today. How many know who Kim Scott is? Tell me, who is she?
Oh, well, she's done a lot with different companies,
To repeat before I forget your long list, she's worked with Apple, Google, and wrote the book Radical Candor. How many of you read Radical Candor? You know anything about it? Well, some of you will be given a book a few weeks before it. And those of you who can answer the right kind of questions to Haley or something unique about the book can come to lunch. She's also our presidential speaker. So we expect 1,000 people to work with her. The first time I read Radical Candor was a few years ago, and I read through it and didn't recognize any of the names in it. Then this last time I read it about a year ago, she mentions the name Astrid Tuminas. And I said, wait a minute, I've heard that name before. She and President Tuminas worked in Russia together and were good friends. So that's how we've got Kim Scott to come to visit with us. She was on the board of directors of Qualtrics and is an advisor to Qualtrics and to the Smith family. So I assume most of you know who Qualtrics is, right? Had a successful exit here this year. So Kim will be meeting with us on that particular one, and we'll alert you before. We'll be down in the Grand Ball. Okay, I must have. If I say something good, that little sound comes on, so thank you. So she'll be down in the Grand Ballroom. We'll have a space set out. That particular lecture will go till 12:30. I know some of you have to leave right at 12:20. Not a problem. We'll let you dismiss. We'll just ask you to kind of sit near the back of the group and take off. We haven't figured out how we'll handle the grading of that day or the attendance. So each day you get an attendance sheet. That's that little sheet of paper you got. Okay? So Kim Scott will be great. A national author we haven't had in this class before, so I'm excited. So the next week, October 24th, we have a gentleman who's the founder and executive CEO of doTERRA. I was visiting with David the other day and at a community event, and I said, I'd love to have you come speak at our lecture series. I didn't know him well, but he agreed to come speak, so he'll be here with us on the 24th. Following him will be our own beloved President Tuminas, who long before she was an academic had a successful history in various business organizations as well. So we look forward to having her here. Then we have Alex Bean, a co-founder and CBO. What's a CBO? Anybody know what that is? So the chief business officer of Divvy, a growing company that's very successful, a relatively younger man. Looking forward to having him. Here's a fellow I've met and read his book. He speaks of leadership, particularly as it relates to young people. He's not from the Utah area. I happened to find him through a friend of a friend, and he came by and visited, and his experiences will be different. And that's the other thing we tried to get, is people who have various experiences. So we're excited to have Ed come too. Then we'll have a Ray Pickup. How many of you know what WCF is? Any of you familiar with that in the business world? You do? Good. What is that? They do workers' comp insurance. Ray Pickup and I have known each other. He was my TA when I first took an accounting class at Brigham Young University. So I picked on Ray. I mean, here's a guy I've known over 30 years, and we've made contact, and he's a successful CEO. I asked him if he'd come speak. So the people you're meeting in classes today, you may reach out to them again in 30 years and see if you can help each other and continue to help one another. And then our concluding speaker will be Mr. Ron Smart, who's a CEO and chairman of a group in Salt Lake called One Door. Some of you are familiar with the sliding doors that would separate buildings, et cetera, just a big dividing wall. But he does them also for fireproofing and safety. When the Pentagon was hit on 9/11, the reason part of the Pentagon didn't survive and was up for business next day is their doors automatically closed and stopped the fire from going on. So I had a tour of his factory and asked him to come speak with us. So excited to have him speak too. So that's our lineup for this year. I think there's 14 speakers. You can do the math if you do the attend and you do your write-up, you've got it. If you come to a luncheon, not only do you get a wonderful meal, more importantly, you get to visit with these lecturers, but you also get 5 points. You can sign up for one, first preference to the first of you who want to sign up for those, and then you could do a standby and get a second lecture if there's not people filled up. Do we have openings for today, by the way? Okay. And sometimes you hang around because one of the people who signed up doesn't show up, so there's still an opportunity to get a lunch and a visit. We talked about the reviews. You get three per review, okay? What if you have to miss? We'd rather you didn't, but we'll let you miss 2. And I think like about 30 people are out today, so they're getting 50% of their mixes. And you don't get quite as many points. You get 6 points instead of the 6 plus the 3, and they do the write-up. So if you have to miss, we understand. But the reason we encourage you not to miss is because we want people in the seats when we have speakers here, not just watching them on afterwards. So class participation is a big deal for us. Okay. Attendance is easy. The write-up is easy. Take it in, and then get ready to go. Listen to the speakers. Any questions on, all of this pretty much is in your syllabus without the details of who the speakers were. But do you have any questions about the class or the makeup? Please.
So you said that it's a pass or fail. So is there any difference between, say, 130 points?
Yes, the difference, he asked, it's pass or fail. So is there any difference between getting 130 points and 100 points? Yeah, you gained 30% more knowledge than those poor saps who only got 100 points. But you both get a passing grade. But if you get 99, you fail. So your college students, we expect you to be able to do the math. This is not, well, I got 99. Yeah, but it's a 99 out of 150 or something. So it is a direct cutoff. At 100 points, you've passed the class. At 99, you didn't. At 130, you got some extra bonus by listening to other speakers or maybe getting a few free meals. Okay? That's a good question. Others? Not only in this class, but I hope in life, particularly when you're young, that you'll question everything. This is not a bad thing to get questions and say, what do I want to do? I want to change the world. How does Tom do it? What is your name, ma'am, on the front row? Julia. Julia? How does Tom do it different than Julia? I don't need to be better or worse than you, Julia, but we're going to have a different impact on the world. And so as you see these speakers, question how they change the world and question how you want to change the world. It may be exactly the same as one speaker and it may be exactly opposite of another. But you can learn something from every one of these speakers. Sometimes you learn, I don't want to do that. But oftentimes you embrace it and say, I want to learn that. Okay? So question what you want to do, how you want to become it. By the way, I forgot to mention one thing on the lunches. If you have many of you have a 1 o'clock class, is that correct? So don't feel bad. The lunch normally goes to about 1:30, but if you have to dine and dash, we'll let you. So you'll come, we'll try to start those lunches right at 12:30, realizing that some of you have 1 o'clock classes, still come to the lunch, and then just leave a little early. We'll let the speakers know that won't be rude. The only exception will be with Kim Scott. 10 or 12 of you will be able to come to that lunch, and that's going to probably go, that probably won't even start till 1 o'clock, and so it'll probably go to 2. So if that doesn't work for your schedule, don't sign up for Kim Scott. I thought some of the questions from previous students would be interesting. I don't know that you need this inspiration, and Haley picked these out, so I'm not exactly sure what they all said, but I'm gonna read my notes so I don't have to turn around. But they liked how each one of them were so different. Now again, sometimes you might not think they're different, but each speaker, no matter what his or her experience is going to emphasize different things. If you asked here's a question you could ask almost anyone. What are some of the keys to success that you've found? And guess what? If we had 10 speakers, you think they'd all give the same answers? If you ask them, what's the latest business book you read that really helped you? You think they'd all have the same answers? They probably have very common ones, but they're going to have different experiences. When you write, I believe the lecture series is one of the most valuable classes the university has. Bring in real-world professionals, helps me learn. That's what class was all about. We're not trying to dish any of your professors. They're all wonderful. But remember, we don't take classes, we take professors. And some of these people, this is their only class they teach, but they're going to share their experiences from the real world, not from the academic world. And frankly, you need a marriage of both the academic world and the real world, I believe, to be successful. In writing the reports, this student says, and I don't need to read it, but it helps you remember what the messages are, and if you keep them. So again, to your earlier question, what does a guy who gets 130 points get versus a person who only got 100 points? Hopefully some more life lessons that they can learn from. The expectations of this class were very clear and simple. 100 points you pass, learn as much as you can, make a difference in life. Being able to meet and talk with the speaker. So if you don't have lunch, normally the speaker will gather here for a bit and answer some questions and find out that your cousin is married to their niece or whatever. They'll do some of that kind of stuff and then answer a question or two. And then right in the midst of your question, I'll be stealing them away from you to try to get our lunch going on time. So feel free to ask questions, but there will come a time when we might interrupt a bit. I hope that this class, I hope this one is true, that this class is applicable to your life goals, that what you want to do and become will be helpful. So I'm going to just share a few of the thoughts that I've learned in life, but I will stop for any questions. I think we've got another 15 minutes. Frankly, if you did everything you're capable of, you'd astound yourself. I'm amazed at people I see with great raw talent, which is frankly where most of us are. We've got this great raw talent. We want to develop it and apply it. And you can be great things. You can do great things. This is not a motivational speech. This is a way of helping you get yourself to that next step. And I hope this class helps you as well as your other classes. I think this is another question you ought to be able to ask lecturers, including myself, of what did you learn from a failure? Because if you're not failing regularly, you're really not stretching as far as you'd like to. So I hope you'll be able to be prepared to ask them, where did you fail? And what did you learn from it? I remember one time I was flying home from Saudi Arabia where I was doing some business. And I flew from there to Frankfurt, and I was flying so often in those days, I got upgraded to first class almost all the time I was flying. And I was sitting next to a woman who clearly wasn't worried about whether she was getting an upgrade. She just had it bought and paid for. She was a well-dressed woman, nice jewelry. I could tell she had money. And we passed the pleasantries that you do when you first sit down before you open a book or go to sleep or whatever you do. And she said, where have you been? I said, in Saudi Arabia, visiting with one of our distributor there, whose name was Abdul-Jabbar. And that was when that name was more popular perhaps in basketball. And she said, don't they do arranged marriages in Saudi Arabia? I said, well, yes, they do. In fact, he is married to a second cousin that his parents arranged. She goes, man, I wish we had arranged marriages in America. I thought, wow, I don't know where this conversation's going, but I'm going to continue it. I said, why do you wish we had arranged marriages in America? She goes, that way I could blame my parents for my 3 failed marriages. And I thought, well, somewhere she made money along those 3 failed marriages, but that's a separate boat. But you're going to learn from your mistakes. Embrace them. Make some mistakes, and then grow from them. Hopefully you won't have 3 failed marriages, but hopefully you'll have some business mistakes that teach you well as you go on. So, is this a true statement? This is from the great philosopher Bill Murray. Every pizza is a personal-sized pizza if you really believe in yourself and you work hard, or try hard and believe in yourself. You can do tough things. How many of you think you're going to have a tough semester? Is this looking like a tough semester? Are you glad you're in this class because it's not so tough, right? It's pretty easy. But we hope you'll learn a lot from this and that you'll gain a lot and realize that you can accomplish a lot. So I'm going to stop for a little while and see if you have any questions. Please. Thank you. You've been my helper. Are you going to sit there regularly so I'll know where to... I'll tell the speakers they can turn to you. Please.
All right. This is just out of my curiosity. How many times have you heard of speakers here?
So we asked, how many times does going to that lunch help that organization out? Several of our students have ended up going to work for the organizations that they've gone and had lunch with. Why? Because they've met one another. Jeremy Traeger Grills, what's Jeremy's last name? Jeremy Andrus is a very popular speaker and runs Traeger Grills, you know, the pellet grill. And because the student had such a passion for the grill, he and Jeremy connected well, and now he's working there. And there are others who have done that too. I'm not remembering them off the top of my head, and sometimes it's just, some speakers are very open. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. Here's my card. Please see me. And some are extremely busy and don't offer themselves out. It's not because they're not nice men and women. It's just their schedule's pretty tough. Okay? So sometimes that pays off very well. Good question. Others? Please.
What are some of the main concepts, I suppose, that
So first of all, he asked what's the difference really of some of the concept we'll discuss in the entrepreneurship lecture series versus the executive lecture series. And really those are 2 different skill sets. Those who are successful at building entrepreneurial companies often need to have an executive come in to run it so that she or he can take it to the next level. Entrepreneurs are just scrappy, got to get it done, don't let anything stand in the way kind of things, where an executive is maybe more planned out, what do we need to do to make that accomplished versus roll the dice and see where it goes. Both skill sets are unique and valuable and build the community, but they're different. And you'll certainly see some of the people we had here could have been in the entrepreneur lecture series, and some of the people in the entrepreneur lecture series could have been in the executive lecture series. But how many of you work for a small entrepreneur? Do any of you work for a small entrepreneur? And they kind of give all heart and soul, et cetera, to doing that? And then others work at an executive who gives also all heart and soul to doing that. So it's a little bit of different skill set. I've never really been a true entrepreneur from the ground up, but I'm kind of better at running a business from 10 and getting it to 50 million than getting it from 0 to 5 million, and that's a different skill set. Please.
What was your path you took to become CEO over CareerReady?
So it wasn't ClearLink. It was Clear, spelt with the X on the on the freeway. I was a consultant for them, and they were looking at raising some money, and I was helping them with their financing plan, and they liked enough of my skills that I ended up becoming the president and CEO of that group. It'd been the 3rd company that I'd been president and CEO of, and each one of them has a little different twist. Basically, in order to, when you get a first job, you just got to do something to be recognized. And if you graduate in business, you've got to do something that's so good that you have a great opportunity. I had the opportunity to run international operations for a software company that really gained me some traction both in travel but also full P&L responsibility and had some opportunity to move from there. And so there is no one right way to be an entrepreneur. There's no one right way to be an executive either. I mean, when Rick Woodbury tells you about it, he'll say, yes, stay in the family business for your whole life and good things will happen. Others of these people will have jumped around a few times. Our own president, President Terminus, has had most of her careers have been 4 and 5 year stints. And for me, that smorgasbord of experience is kind of helpful. You gain a little bit about everything. Now, on the other hand, maybe you're a master of none, and I'll let other people judge that. So, but what you got to do is do whatever job you're doing so well that someone said, I bet we can apply more on him or her and watch them grow. And then be willing to take, and I'm almost fearful to say this, when I say you've got to be willing to take smart risk, the person who is adverse to risk said, well, Tom said they only have to be smart risk, so I'm not going to take anything. And the person who's more predisposed to take risk will say, Tom said take risk. No, he said take smart risk, so don't do dumb things. How do you know that? Well, in history, you know whether it was a good thing to do or not. But at least measure it out. I'm really worried when someone just says, well, I feel good about this, but they've done no analysis. That doesn't cut it for me. For me, I've got to do some analysis, not just say, yeah, this seems like the right thing to do. Does that answer your question? And maybe it went on too long, I'm sorry. Others? If you don't ask questions, I bring out the karaoke machine. So you want to ask questions, please.
Is there any sort of final projects?
Oh, thank you. Didn't talk about the final grades. So thank you for the grading. It's on the syllabus, but I don't know that we emphasized it here. You do an SRI on me, and you get 2 points, is that? And then you do the final, because we have to have a final. The final is judge all 14 speakers who came. Which one did you really like, and which one did you not like? So the final is just recapping which one of then you're comparing each one to each other and saying, yes, I liked her better than him, but him better than her, and so the final is just telling us how you liked the 14 speakers. Thank you for that clarifying question. We need to put that in the syllabus. If it wasn't there, I messed that up. I'm sorry. Another question? Please.
So where did you make business mistakes
Oh,
or failures?
man. I told you that's a good question for the other speakers. Obviously lots. Probably the biggest mistake I've made is when I've waited too long to get somebody off the bus. He asked about the biggest mistakes I've made. And when you're bringing a team together, I'm quoting obviously from good to great, you get the right players on the bus. When a person is not capable of doing the job they're in, it is not compassionate to you, it's not compassionate to them, and it clearly isn't compassionate to the organization or your fellow team members to take too long to make the change. And if I had one regret in business, it's when I've taken too long to make that change. And frankly, sometimes I've taken too long to make that change in me. Hey, I'm doing something that isn't working. I've got to do it different. But when you have to have that tough conversation with someone who's feeding a family and you've got to say, look, this job isn't working out, and how you do that nicely, there's a lot of ways you can talk about. There is no nice way. You've got to be willing to do that. And then sometimes I haven't studied an item. I went by gut feel too quick and invested money and saw my money go away. And, you can lose money a lot quicker than you can earn it. So be careful. Just do enough, make smart decisions, but do enough analysis on it. So probably acting too quick on the investment and too slow on changing a person. Please, I don't see you because of the glare, but shout it out, please. You're going to have to be louder. I'm sorry. Changes to what?
To those individuals that are having issues or
So his question is, when you have an employee, first of all, as human beings, and the Dalai Lama said, be kind whenever possible, and it's always possible. So be kind. So the first step to being kind with an employee that's not working out is to have a face-to-face and talk with him or her about what's not working out. If you're not doing that, I don't think you're really doing your job as a leader. So if help me with your name one more time. Julia. Julia's my boss. And well, in fact, you all are. I think you're students. You're paying my tuition. Pay a little more tuition. So, no, I'm sorry. If Julia is talking to me and she's not thinking I'm working out, what is your responsibility, Julia? To be kind, but to also be true. Be kind to me, but also to the employees and saying, hey, Tom, we asked you to do this job and it's not working out. Am I not clear in my instructions? Do you need some additional training in this area? So step one is to make sure I get the training I need. But if I'm not capable of doing it, then you got to make the move. And how many of those steps you need to take, I don't know. And again, I think sometimes I've tried to take too many steps, and frankly, sometimes I've just kind of, oh boy, I sure hope that fixes itself, and it never fixes itself. You've got to be proactive and go talk to it. Talk to it. Address the problem, talk to the person, try to make it work. So, please, I'll go to this man behind you because I think I've caught you once, please.
Yeah, I have a question. So after you graduated,
Yeah, so he asked what my career path was. First job out of school was with a major CPA firm. And making the transition from public accounting into really running an organization is tough because you get pigeonholed as an accountant, or you can get pigeonholed as a computer scientist or an engineer or an attorney. So you have to have a broad enough base to say, yep, he or she can do these other things too. So my first one was getting training in public accounting. And for that, I've been really grateful. My kids went consulting firms right out. So that kind of that general idea, getting good business experience is helpful. Yeah, you had a question?
yeah, you mentioned making smart risks.
Yeah.
Do you have an example of one that you did?
Sure. I mean, I've made some success in real estate. And the first one I did was we had an opportunity to move pretty quickly on a piece of real estate that a family needed to sell in a trust and needed to close it. They needed to close quickly, so we had to do our due diligence very quickly because closing timely was very important. So I had to pull together, I had some money, but I needed some additional funding to do this size of project. So I had to quickly do a deal that gave them an equal return, a good return for their investment, but also gave me a good return for finding the deal and being the general partner on the deal. So you had to move pretty quickly with numbering and sense and how it made sense to them financially and how it made sense to you. And we ended up turning that project and did very well on it. But yeah, so just making sure you're understanding all the pieces. What's likely to happen? What's it currently zoned at? What other development's going to go around it? How long of a hold do you think you need? And one of the challenges you get, if you get money that wants a return in 6 months, but it's a 3-year project, you got the wrong money. And if you got a project, money that wants a 7-year hold, but you want to flip in 2 years, you're going to be at a fight. So you have to align your investors with your desires as well. Well, with that, it only gets better from here, guys. I'm the low point on this speaker series. From here on out, it gets better. We look forward to seeing you next week. When? Who's coming? Mr. Woodbury. Thank you. When Mr. Woodbury's here, we'll see you at 11:30 and we go to 12:20. Thank you and have a great day. Great semester to you.